Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another music review. My name is Bryce, and um, originally I wanted to kind of stay in that golden age period, but recently I got a little brochure in the mail for Lifeway, and I saw a couple new albums were coming out. Had no idea that these were coming out, and so I kind of thought, well, why don't I do something for these artists since they have new albums coming out? And one of them happens to be a Golden Age artist, which works nicely. But the one that we're going to look at today is we're going to look at they're a relatively new group. They produced their first album just a couple years ago in 2014, and that is the group Unspoken. Like I said, obviously they have a new album that's fixing to come out. Really excited about that. Um, but as far as this first album goes, it's just a self-titled album. It's just called Unspoken. Let's take a quick look at the band. We have Michael Gomez on electric guitars and also backing vocals. Mr. John Lowry on bass, acoustic guitars, backing vocals, and even does the keys on My Recovery. So we have a Renaissance man here. Mr. Chad Matson on lead vocals, and Ariel Munoz on drums and various other percussion. So, and there's other information about the publishing and the mastering and everything, but it's kind of weird. Instead of being in the lyric book, it's actually on the inside of the CD. Like, you have to take the CD out of the plastic container, and it's behind the CD, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, so I mentioned that this was published in 2014. However, I did not mention who published it. Centricity Music is who published it. So this is the first time since we reviewed Aaron Schuss that we had somebody from Centricity Music. So this is actually kind of cool. It's like we're almost coming full circle here. Um, so let's take a quick look then at the songs. There is, sorry about that noise I probably just made. There is a total of how many songs? There's 12 songs plus there's a bonus song. It's a remix of one of the other ones. We'll get to that in a minute. So let's start then at the very beginning. Obviously, let's start with "Start a Fire." Here you go. So anyway, we have it's got sort of like a shuffle style to it, sort of. I say shuffle because that's really the closest thing I can associate with it. But it's like it's kind of bouncy, but it's like a conservative kind of bouncy. It's pretty cool. Um, basic Basically the singer is asking for a fire for God to grow in his soul so he can show Jesus in a dark world. That's essentially the message that we have going on here. As far as musicality, I mean, I think the song is really well balanced. I think the drums might be a little too repetitive, and because I mean, it's essentially the same kind of rhythmic pattern throughout the whole thing, and it gets boring after a while. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, but I still like the song. I especially kind of like the vocals and the bridge. It kind of gives a little extra spotlight to Chad's range. So it's really good. Um, Track two, Who You Are. So this one is soft. It's pretty. It's mellow. Um, it's really mellow kind of a song. It's a song of how forgiveness is available to all, thanks to the cross, and I think this song is really relatable for many people. I don't want to spoil the lyrics like I used to back in the day, if I can help it anyway. But this is relatable, I think, for a lot of people because a lot of people think that they can't find forgiveness, and um, this would be the song that I have for you then. Track three is Good Fight. So, this one's another probably one of my favorites from the album, but the style changes to, and I apologize if I don't describe this like really spectacular, but it sounds to me it's like a hip hop slash pop mix. Like it's not quite of either or, but like somehow there's a blend in there. At least that's what it feels like to me. Um, so I, even though I like this song, there's some things that I wish were a little bit different. For example, I wish the drums sounded real throughout. Like in the beginning, they sound fake, like they're clearly going through a program, and then later in the song, this actually sounds like a real drums recorded in studio. It's like, well, why can't it be that way throughout the entire thing? I also don't understand why Chad alters his voice. He's essentially speaking in the verses. It's what it sounds like to me, and I don't understand why you need to do that, but it's probably less evident in the channel leading up to the chorus. But even still, it's I don't understand why. But then again, even though those are just little minor nitpicks on my part, I still very much enjoy this song. The perspective is like God talking to believers who are going through trials or going through different things, and is encouraging us to fight the good fight, which is a reference to what Paul said in Second Timothy about how he fought the good fight, and it was that's that's essentially what the song is encouraging us to do, is just to keep fighting the good fight. It's a song of perseverance, basically. Another cool thing about this song was featured in the War Room trailer. I don't know, I can't remember if it actually made the movie itself, but it was used in the trailer to promote it, so that's pretty cool. All right, so track 4, "Call It Grace." So this album slows, so the album slows back down. To a it has, I can never tell if it's 6/8 or 12/8 because it feels exactly the same. It's like 2/4 and 4/4 for on the other end, but it's like whether it's 6/8 or 12/8, it's got that triplet kind of feel to it. It's a lot slower, and it's all about God's grace using different metaphors to describe it. Is basically what it is. Again, I don't really want to spoil it too much. This is a song though that I would suggest going back and listening to because this is really good, I think. Track 5, "Lift My Life Up." So the tempo picks back up with the piano in it, and the chorus actually kind of reminds me of the rhythm in "To the Dreamers," which was a For King and Country song. It sort of reminds me. I mean, it's not exact, but it kind of reminds me of it. But it's slower and it's better than For King and Country's rhythm to that. So I take what you will from it. Basically, this one is a song of surrender. Um, it's good. So track 6 is "Tomorrow." Um, so this one starts off with a guitar riff, and the verses kind of alter between. It goes 3/4 to 4/4 time, and I guess it could also be 7/8. Depending, but sometimes people count 7/8 as like it was a 3/4 and then a 4/4. Um, so you have that pattern going. It's like it's doing that alteration, or if it's just a straight 7/8, and then all of a sudden, right before the chorus, there's like a 5/4 in there. At least that's at least how it felt to me. Somebody can go back and check me if they want, but that's just kind of how it feels like. And that guitar riff that I was talking about earlier, it's kind of, to give you a description of what it's like. It's kind of like what you'd hear in a lot of different praise and worship songs. It's the essentially the guitar is established. It's establishing the tempo, establishing the rhythm, that kind of a thing. But this song is based on Matthew 6:33 and 34, which is seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Do not worry about tomorrow, for today has its own problems. It's a horrible paraphrase, I understand that, but That's the verse that it's based off of, and so this is a really good song, I think, for people to hear. The singer's desire is to give control to Jesus and seek Him first. So that's how it's emulating the verse. So anyway, let's move on. Track 7, In Your Hands. There's no drum bass at the beginning, but eventually they come in. The accompaniment to me is really well balanced again. Um, a little bit of a bummer though that it's the third song in a row about surrendering control. I don't mind that there's 3 songs with that theme. It's just all right in a row. Kind of is like doesn't really make sense to me why you would have that. Like maybe having your hands at a different port or a different point in the album, but that's my opinion. Um, Track 8, Real Thing. Not to be confused with For Him's Real Thing. Um, Entirely different song, entirely different style. Essentially the same message though. I can I can see this song kind of being like the anthem of millennials. 'Cause it just seems to be like a banner song because it's about how Jesus is the real thing that we're all searching for. And there's one thing that I can being a well being in what society calls the millennial demographic. I can I can speak for a lot of millennials when I say I think the thing that probably the biggest thing that millennials are searching for is just something real to maybe whether it's to believe in or whatever, whatever. A lot of people will say different ways, but I think they're looking for something real. And Jesus really what they don't seem to understand though is that Jesus is the real thing that they're searching for. All right, so track 9, Walking Away. So it's got a bouncy piano at the beginning, and it's bouncy because the singer is leaving the old life. It's a happy kind of a feeling. As much as I'll rat on people being happy and not being joyous, happy isn't always necessarily a bad thing. It's just being happy can be human emotion, but it's not always necessarily a bad thing. You want to be joyous more than you are happy, but in this case though, it's a happy feeling. The singer is abandoning the old ways, moving on to a new life. It's a happy feeling. I don't have any problem with that. Um, I really appreciate how this song just the kind of just seems to like return to the basics as far as its musicality goes. It's like it just it's it just kind of proves that that you don't need to always do things that are so elaborate. Sometimes every now and then you really need to go back and just go to the basics. What I don't like about this song is I don't like the high vocals and the bridge. It just doesn't mesh well with me at all. All right, track 10, Everything. So, I have to ask one question about this song. Why does the guitar sound muffled, especially at the beginning? I don't understand that. But as far as the song goes, I think this is one of 2 songs on this album that really seem to kind of like take a risk from everything else that they were doing. Um, it's probably the most rock sounding album or track on the album, and I I mean it sounds fine. I mean it's really good, but I mean I again, it kind of gets ruined with that guitar being muffled at the beginning. But it's about how the world promises the best, but in reality, the best is found in Jesus and His love. And I think that's a good message. It really fit the style fits it really well. But yeah, so yeah, it's a good one. Bury the Workman is the next track, and I think that one's probably the other one that's a little bit of a risk taker, but I mean it works really well. It almost has an a cappella start, uh, but it's cool. It's all. I mean I hate. I hate to describe something that's borderline country style cool, but for whatever reason, like they really seem to make this work. It's like the song though is about it uses Stephen, James, Peter, and Jesus to illustrate how those who do the work of God, they're going to face persecution, but even if they die, and in Jesus' case, rise from the dead, uh, the Holy Spirit will continue to move. The Holy Spirit is going to continue to do His will. It's so yeah, it's a really good song. It might be if the times are heading to the way I think they're heading, then it might be a song that we should maybe try to learn um, as a way of. I don't want to compare us to the rockers of the '60s and the '70s, but a way to stick it to the man, so as it were. Yes, I just made that pun. I can't believe I just went there. So, uh, the next track, technically the last track of the album, is "My Recovery." There's no drums in this one at all. It's meant to be more intimate. Um, and so the perspective is as though the singer's talking to God, he or she is also testifying the work about the work that's been done in them. So it's it's, I mean, it's a good song. It's probably not one that would go back to, mostly just because I just like too many of the other songs on here. But I mean, it is a good song. I'm not going to say that it's not or anything like that. But well, actually, you know what? I mean, I can say this for it. I could see this like potentially being something that you could use for an intimate song in church. I'll give it a little bit more credit than that. But all right. So anyway, the last track on here, the bonus track, as what I'm going to call it, it's a radio remix of the song "Tomorrow." So if you guys were listening and you heard me talking about the beginning of the song, guitar riff, and you guys are more familiar with the radio remix of "Tomorrow," you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's not how the song starts. Well, for whatever reason, the radio decided to remix this, and this one is it's more of a pop kind of sound. It's got more. The way I can describe it is, it's got more drums and less musicality, if that makes sense. Like the style almost feels like completely different. Like if it's definitely a lot more bouncy kind of a song, but it's but what I really appreciated about the original one was the musicality, the changing time signatures, the way that everything just kind of seemed to flow together. And I mean, now don't get me wrong, I like the radio remix. I do. It's got, I can see where it's got its place at concerts. It'll probably get people more into the song to play this version at concerts, but it's like I don't see what was so wrong with the original that we needed to create a remix. But that having been said, I do like the remix. I like them both for different reasons. So, but anyway, that's really all I have to say about it. So, this album surprised me. It's well balanced. It's safe for a first album, but maybe a little bit too safe. So for this next album that comes out, I'd like to see them take a few more risks. Not, not so many risks that I wonder, what the style of this group really is, but kind of like how Sidewalk Prophets will play around with different styles, but they still kind of keep their face on the style, something like that. I mean, there was a little bit more in this album than I originally thought, but still, I'd like to see a little bit more of it in the next one. And speaking of the next one, I think it'll prove if this well balanced kind of a style that they seem to have, if that's what's going to end up being the staple of this group. But it'll also prove if something else is too. I mean, who's to say? We'll find out before too long. So overall, so real quick, let me say, if you've been listening to these on my site, then I should tell you that I've started to put these up on YouTube, and I've also been giving them a rating, a whatever out of 5 or whatever. If you're a listener on YouTube, then you've seen me go back and put those in the video, but the people who have been listening on the site have, don't know that. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm going back and I'm adding like a rating at the end of it. And so for this album, I'm gonna give this one a 4.39 out of 5. I mean, it's a really good opening album. A little, like I said, a little safe, but overall very, very solid. I very much enjoyed it, a lot more than I thought I was going to. So that's all I really have to say about this album. The next album that we're going to be taking a look at is it's not the first album put out by this particular artist, but it's a golden age artist, and this is also somebody who is coming out with a new album, and I had absolutely no idea they were coming out with this album, but I'm ecstatic nonetheless. So until then, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. For those on YouTube, you can leave a comment if you want. Otherwise, you can email comments and questions, articles that you want me to post on my website to cootyexpressions@gmail.com. Anyway, guys, until the next review, my name is Bryce, and I'll see you guys next time. So, guys, I kind of goofed with this one a little bit. I forgot to give what my personal recommendations were for this album. My top recommendations are Start a Fire, Good Fight, Call It Grace, and both versions of Tomorrow. And I've also got a couple, I'm just going to call them second tier recommendations. And that would be the songs Who You Are and Real Thing. But yeah, those out of all of them, I mean, like I said already in the review, it's a really good album, but those are my personal favorites. So anyway, check them out for yourself, and next review should be coming out before too long, so I'll see you guys then.